In this presentation, TFI to Action Plan, I'm going to discuss the guiding practices for a healthy program that you can build as your team works through these important pieces of your PBIS framework. My name is Erin Day, and I am a Behavior Support Specialist with the West Virginia Behavior Mental Health Technical Assistance Center. Our center is a collaboration between the West Virginia Autism Training Center at Marshall University and the West Virginia Department of Education's Office of Special Education. The TA Center was created from an outcry for support in behavior and mental health needs across the state and is the hub for early childhood PBIS, school-wide PBIS, and mental health first aid. However, our support doesn't stop there. We also offer technical assistance in areas such as trauma, social-emotional learning, challenging behaviors, re-entry into school during a crisis, and anything else relating to behavior or mental health needs. As you listen today, if there's anything that jumps out at you or something you feel you need more support and understanding, I will share my information with you at the end, and you are welcome to reach out to either me or one of our other behavior support specialists as needed. Before I begin, I want to point out that the information presented today is either a piece of or related to the school-wide tiered Fidelity inventory. If this is not something you have a hard copy of, you can access it either through the West Virginia PBIS website using the first link on your screen, or from the National Center on PBIS using the second link. So let's talk about what you're going to hear more on today. Throughout this video, I'm going to discuss completing your Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or TFI, creating an action plan, and then using these together to guide your program. Let's start with the first idea, completing your Tiered Fidelity Inventory, or TFI. Step 1 in your process for a healthy program is to evaluate your current practices. You're going to do this by completing your TFI as a team, which I'll dig into here in just a moment. But before I do that, it's important to know that this is not a CATIA for us to look at what you're not doing or where your program may be lacking. This information is gathered by you and your team and used to help you guide your next steps. So being honest in your evaluation is going to be critical to your success. If you're new to or unfamiliar with PBIS, you may be wondering, what is the Tiered Fidelity Inventory? For those who are unsure, and as a refresher if you have heard of it, the TFI is a guiding document that helps you evaluate the health of your PBIS framework. Within the actual document, it states, the purpose of the school-wide PBIS Tiered Fidelity Inventory, TFI, is to provide a valid, reliable, and efficient measure of the extent to which school personnel are applying the core features of school-wide positive behavioral interventions and supports, school-wide PBIS. The TFI is split into essential features that are also broken into subscales. On your screen, you can see the 15 essential features for Tier 1. Those 15 features are all pieces of 3 subscales. In blue, you'll see the features that relate to teams. In green, the features that relate to implementation. And in pink, the features that relate to evaluation. I'm not going to dig into each of these today, but it's important to know that as you're completing your TFI, you'll be looking at each of these 15 features as they relate to your school's program. When you evaluate each feature, your team will use the TFI to analyze your current practices, scoring each item with a score of either 0, which means that feature is not being implemented, 1, which means it's partially implemented, or 2, which means it's fully implemented. As you can see in the snapshot on the left-hand side of your screen, the TFI document contains detailed information to help you through this scoring process. It first lists a description of the feature in the first column, possible data sources in the middle, and descriptors for each score, 0, 1, and 2, in the last column. As you're working through the TFI, you will mark your scores for each critical feature on a scoring form. This form should be completed as you start your program to gather baseline data, and then at the end of the year to measure your program's growth. You can also complete this throughout the year to progress monitor any categories you identify as areas of need. This fall, our center is currently working to roll out an online version of the TFI, which will allow you to fill in your scores digitally, and your data will be sent directly to the state PBIS coordinator and shared with your school's behavior support specialist. To find the things I've just shown you, visit the West Virginia PBIS website at www.wvpbis.org and click on the Evaluation/Data tab at the top of the page. You can see it highlighted in green on your screen. From there, you'll see a section for the Tiered Fidelity Inventory with several links below it. To access a copy of the TFI document, click on TFI Tool, which is highlighted in yellow, and this link will take you to the National PBIS website where you can download the TFI as a PDF document. To download and/or print your scoring forms, click on the appropriate link under Tier 1 Score Sheet. You can see the baseline form is highlighted on your screen in blue. When you're ready for the end of the year form, it can be found at the link below that. As I mentioned on the last slide, we're working to add an online version of the TFI scoring form, and a link to that will be added to our website soon. Now it's time to use the data and information you've gathered from scoring your TFI. After completing your TFI, your team is ready for step 2. In this step, you'll use your TFI scores to create an action plan. This process is used to identify areas of weakness and to think about how you can maintain areas of strength that you identified in your TFI. Before we move along any further, let's clarify exactly what an action plan is in this context. When you develop your action plan, you're creating the guiding document that helps you focus on areas of need and maintain healthy practices. Furthermore, the purpose of your action plan is to thoughtfully and purposefully use the data from your TFI to plan out the appropriate steps to build, maintain, and strengthen your PBIS program. There are a couple of action planning forms that I'm going to show you. This first one is from the school-wide PBIS Tiered Fidelity Inventory that I shared with you as a resource earlier. This can be found on pages 25 and 26 in your booklet or in your PDF if you accessed it through the PBIS website. There is also an action planning form that was created through West Virginia PBIS and tends to be more user-friendly. This one is a Word document that can be edited and allows you to type directly into the form as your team is creating, updating, and revising your action plan. Here is an example of that action planning form that's been completed, which can also be accessed on the West Virginia PBIS website for your reference. To find these documents, visit www.wvpbis.org and click on the Evaluation/Data tab along the top again. You'll then click on Tier 1 PBIS Action Plan, which is highlighted in yellow. This will allow you to download the planning form and work through it in Microsoft Word. To wrap up this topic, I wanted to show you an example of a completed TFI and action plan from one of the PBIS Tier 1 model schools here in West Virginia. On the left side of your screen, you'll see this team's TFI with scores recorded on the right-hand side of that form. On the right side of your screen, you'll see their action planning document. Notice that on the first critical feature, team composition, they evaluated their practice as a 1 out of 2. So, on their action plan, you can see they've created 4 steps on their to-do list to address this weakness in hopes of raising that score and ultimately strengthening their program. Similarly, you can see that on feature 1.7, professional development, they also have a score of 1. And looking at their action plan in the third row, you can again see that this is something they created steps for on their to-do list to make sure that this was an area that was addressed. Finally, I want to point out that on feature 1.4, teaching expectations, they have a score of 2 out of 2. If you look over to their action plan, you'll see in the second row that this is a feature that's included, even though it's been scored as fully implemented. This was done to ensure that this particular practice was maintained throughout the upcoming school year. This is a great example of being thoughtful and purposeful in creating an action plan based on TFI scores. While you're working through this process with your team, it's important to remember to not only focus on areas that require attention to make improvements, but also to keep focus on those items that you want to make sure are continually addressed to maintain the strengths within your program. Now that we've discussed completing both the TFI and the action plan, let's talk about step 3. Let your action plan guide your program. In this final step, it's important to know that the items from your action plan should guide your meeting agendas. So as your team is planning each PBIS meeting, be sure to use your action plan when choosing meeting topics. Use the timelines you set for yourself to guide you in prioritizing these, and remember to focus on the things you want to accomplish from one meeting to the next. That leads to the other important thing to know. Following your plan is what will lead you to a healthy program. As I wrap up, I want to leave you with this overview. I know that this was a lot of information in a short time, but it can boil down into 3 simple statements. So as your team is working through this process, remember, your TFI will guide your action plan. Your action plan will guide your meetings, and your meetings will build your program. Thanks for listening today, and I hope this information helps you and your team as you use these guiding practices for a healthy program. If there's anything I can do to support you in this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can see my email here on the screen. As I mentioned, I am a behavior support specialist with the West Virginia Behavior Mental Health Technical Assistance Center, and I work with 19 counties in the northern region of the state. If you are listening from another area, feel free to contact me and I will help you along in your journey as well, and can also get you in contact with the behavior support specialist for your region of the state to support you even further. I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes: "Be the change you wish to see in the world." As a former teacher myself, I know that so much of the work you do often goes unnoticed, but have no doubt that you are changing the world one day at a time. Stay safe, be well, and good luck in your PBIS journey.